Imagine a quiet evening, the world hushed as the sun dips below an unseen edge, casting long shadows that stretch into an endless unknown. There, on the horizon of time, a whisper hums, a faint, elusive murmur of tomorrow. What does it say? Is it a promise of wonder or a warning of ruin? We stand at the precipice of the not yet born, gazing into a future that feels both distant and uncomfortably near, a canvas where the strokes of today's dreams, or perhaps our quiet nightmares, begin to take shape. Let us linger here for a while in this liminal space and ask ourselves, what does it mean to imagine a world that does not yet exist? A world that might carry the weight of our deepest fears or the echo of our unspoken desires. The idea of dystopia, a shadowed twin to the utopia we long for, is not merely a story spun from the threads of fiction. It is something more intimate, more piercing, a mirror held up to the parts of ourselves we hesitate to confront. It shows us not just what could be, but what we fear we already are. Think of it as a dark lake, its surface still and unrippled, yet beneath lies a depth that reflects our anxieties about power, loss, and the fragility of the human spirit. When we conjure these broken futures, are we escaping the present, or are we, in some strange way, confessing to it? Are these visions of collapse and control mere fantasies, or are they the shape of paths we are already carving through the wilderness of our choices? Consider for a moment the weight of uncertainty that tomorrow carries. It is not a fixed destination, not a place we can map with precision. It is a fog, thick and shifting, where every step forward feels like a gamble. In the tales of dystopia, we see societies stripped of warmth, where trust is a currency no one can afford, where the individual is swallowed by the machine of the collective. But why do these stories resonate so deeply within us? Perhaps it is because they speak to a primal fear, a dread that the seeds of such a world are already sown in the soil of our reality. Perhaps they ask us to look at the small compromises we make, the silences we accept, and wonder if they are the first whispers of a storm yet to come. Take a moment to reflect on this. What do you see when you gaze into the horizon of your own tomorrow? Is it a place of light, or do shadows linger at the edges of your vision? There is no need for an answer now, only the quiet space to feel the questions settle within you. Let us wander a little deeper into this thought. Dystopia is not just a warning. It is also a canvas for our desires, however hidden they may be. In these imagined worlds, where order chokes freedom and humanity bends under unseen hands, there is often a strange allure, a fascination with the clarity that comes from absolute control, or the simplicity of a life stripped of choice. Do we, in some buried corner of our minds, yearn for a world where the chaos of existence is tamed, even at the cost of our own essence? Or is it that these dark futures allow us to confront the worst of ourselves, to play out our fears in a theater of the mind, so that we might return to the present with a renewed resolve to build something better? Picture a city of the future, its skyline jagged and cold, where the air hums not with life, but with the weight of unseen eyes. This is not a place we can touch, not yet, but it feels close enough to chill the skin. It is a reminder that the future is not something that happens to us. It is something we shape with every word, every silence, every step. And so, as we stand here, gazing into the whisper of tomorrow, we must ask, are we listening to its warnings, or are we too captivated by its mystery to hear the truth beneath? Let this question linger, like the fading light of dusk, as we rest in the quiet uncertainty of what is yet to come. Imagine for a moment a world not yet broken, yet trembling on the edge of collapse, a world where the first whispers of ruin are not shouted in chaos, but murmured in the quiet corners of thought. What drives us, as a species, to conjure images of society shattered, of freedom stolen, of humanity itself cast into shadow? Let us step back, far into the mists of time, to uncover the birth of this dark imagination, to trace the origins of dystopian thought, where ancient minds and modern pens alike have grappled with the fragility of order and the ever-looming spectre of our own undoing. In the earliest days of human civilization, before the written word had fully taken hold, there were already warnings etched into the collective psyche. Think of the ancient Greeks, whose philosophers like Plato pondered the nature of the ideal state in his republic, only to warn of its inevitable decay. He spoke of a world where justice could crumble into tyranny, where the guardians of society might become its jailers. His vision was not merely of a perfect city, but of the shadow it cast, a society where the pursuit of harmony could birth oppression. Was this the first seed of dystopian thought, sown in the fertile ground of philosophical inquiry? Or was it simply a reflection of a timeless fear that power, once grasped, rarely releases its hold? Centuries later, as empires rose and fell, the warnings grew sharper, more visceral. Consider the tales of societal collapse woven into religious texts, where divine wrath or human folly brought once proud cities to dust. These were not just stories of punishment, but mirrors held up to humanity's flaws, our greed, our hubris, our willingness to sacrifice the many for the few. They whispered a question that still echoes. Are we, by our very nature, destined to build only to destroy? Take a moment to reflect on this. What ancient fears still linger in our bones, shaping the way we imagine tomorrow? As time marched forward, the industrial age forged new anxieties into the heart of dystopian thought. The world became a machine, and with it came the dread of being consumed by our own creations. Enter the chilling voice of modernity, embodied in the works of thinkers like George Orwell, whose 1984 painted a world not of fantastical ruin, but of suffocating control. His vision was not of distant cataclysms, but of a reality just beyond the horizon, where every thought was monitored, every rebellion crushed before it could even form. Orwell did not invent dystopia, but he distilled it into something painfully real, a warning carved from the traumas of war and the rise of totalitarian regimes. His words linger like a cold fog, asking us to consider: how thin is the line between order and oppression? How easily does freedom slip through our fingers when fear becomes the currency of power? Yet Orwell was not alone in this dance with humanity's shadow. Before him, others like Thomas More, in his Utopia, had already hinted at the paradox of perfection, how the dream of an ideal world could twist into a nightmare of constraint. Even earlier, the apocalyptic visions of medieval scribes spoke of societies undone by moral decay, their ruins a testament to the eternal struggle between our aspirations and our failings. What unites these voices across time is not just their foresight, but their shared unease, a quiet, persistent murmur that we are never far from the edge. They saw in their own eras the seeds of collapse, unchecked power, societal neglect, the slow erosion of what makes us human. And so, they wrote, not to predict, but to caution, to make us pause and look inward. Let us linger on this idea for a moment. Why do we return, again and again, to these broken worlds in our minds? Is it merely fear of what might come? Or is there something deeper? A recognition of the flaws we carry within us, flaws that history has magnified time and again. Perhaps dystopian thought is not a prophecy, but a confession, a way for us to face the parts of ourselves we dare not name in the light of day. It is as though, in imagining these shattered futures, we are rehearsing for a loss we cannot yet articulate, seeking to understand the delicate balance between creation and destruction that defines our existence. And so, as we stand on the precipice of our own uncertain tomorrow, we might ask ourselves, what is it about these dark visions that feels so familiar? Is it the shadow of history, repeating its lessons in endless cycles? Or is it the quiet voice within, warning us of the paths we tread even now? Take a moment to reflect on this. Let the weight of these ancient and modern voices settle over you like a soft, inevitable dusk. For in their warnings, we find not just fear, but a strange kind of clarity, a reminder that the future is not a distant place, but a story we are writing with every choice, every silence, every step into the unknown. Imagine a city where every shadow hides an eye, where the air itself seems to hum with the weight of unseen watchers. A place where your every step is traced, your every word captured like a moth in a jar, preserved for scrutiny long after you've forgotten you spoke. This is not a city of towering walls or overt chains, but one of invisible threads, woven so subtly that you might mistake them for the fabric of your own choices. Welcome to a world where control is not imposed by force, but invited through the quiet allure of safety and the creeping whisper of fear. Let us wander through the streets of this imagined place, where the architecture of control is not built from stone, but from the slow erosion of what we once called freedom. Picture the cameras perched like silent birds on every corner, their lenses glinting with a cold, unblinking gaze. They are not hidden, but normalized, sold to the people as guardians, protectors against a danger that no one can quite name. And yet, as you pass beneath their stare, a shiver runs through you, a primal instinct that something sacred is slipping away. How did this come to be? Was there a single moment when the balance tipped, or was it 1,000 tiny surrenders, each one cloaked in the promise of convenience? Consider the tools of this control, so mundane in their disguise. A device in your pocket, a marvel of connection, becomes a tether, mapping your desires, your fears, your very thoughts. It offers you ease, answers at a touch, paths laid out before you. But in return, it drinks in your essence, feeding a vast, unseen machine that knows you better than you know yourself. And then there is the voice of the state, or perhaps a faceless entity beyond it, speaking through screens and speakers, shaping the story of the world. Propaganda, we might call it, though it wears the mask of truth, weaving narratives so seamless that doubt itself feels like betrayal. It tells you what to fear, what to love, and slowly, imperceptibly, it carves away the edges of who you are until you fit neatly into the mold prepared for you. But the true genius of this control lies not in its visibility, but in its patience. It does not arrive with a thunderclap or a decree, but with a drip, a gradual seep into the cracks of daily life. First, it is a small concession, a scan of your face to enter a building, a record of your movements for your own safety, then another and another until the cage is complete, and you find yourself marveling at how comfortable the bars have become. Take a moment to reflect on this. Have you ever felt the weight of a choice that wasn't truly yours? A decision made not out of will, but out of a quiet, unspoken pressure. Spoken. How thin is the line between protection and possession? Let us delve deeper into the heart of this mechanism, into the erosion of individuality itself. In this city, to be unique is to be suspect. To think differently is to invite scrutiny. That system thrives not on overt punishment, but on the subtle art of conformity, rewarding those who blend in, who silence their inner voices for the sake of harmony. Your name, once a marker of your singular existence, becomes a code, a number in a ledger. Your dreams, once wild and unbounded, are tamed by the ceaseless hum of expectation. And yet beneath it all, a question lingers like a shadow at dusk. Are we, even now, laying the foundation for such a world? Are we, with every unthinking nod to convenience, with every shrug at a privacy lost, crafting the very cages we fear? As we stand in this imagined city, surrounded by the silent machinery of control, let us ponder its origins. Did it begin with a noble intent, a desire to shield humanity from its own chaos? Or was it always a hunger, a need to dominate disguised as care? History whispers of empires that watched their people, of regimes that turned trust into a weapon, but never has the reach been so vast, so intimate as in this vision of tomorrow. The tools have changed, grown sharper, more insidious, but the impulse remains the same, a longing to order the unpredictable, to tame the wildness of the human spirit. And yet, in seeking to control, do we not risk losing the very essence of what makes us alive? Take a moment to reflect on this. Imagine yourself in such a place where every breath is measured, every thought a potential crime. What would you hold on to in the deepest recesses of your mind to remind yourself that you are still you? Is there a memory, a feeling, a defiance that no system could strip away? Or does the slow drip of control eventually wash even that away, leaving nothing but a hollow shell where a soul once burned? As the night deepens in this city of watchers, let us linger on the paradox at its core. Control promises safety, but at what cost? It offers order, but in doing so, it strangles the chaos that births creativity, love, rebellion, the very things that define us. Perhaps the true horror is not the cage itself, but how easily we might come to call it home, how readily we might trade our messy, imperfect freedom for a polished prison. And so, we stand at the crossroads of this imagined tomorrow, gazing into the unblinking eyes of a world that might be, wondering if the seeds of its making are already sown in the choices we make today. Imagine a world where you no longer recognize the face in the mirror, not because time has altered your features, but because the very essence of who you are has been stripped away. What if, one day, you woke to find your name replaced by a number, your thoughts no longer your own, and your dreams reduced to echoes of a collective will? There is a quiet horror in this thought, a creeping dread that settles into the bones, not of violence or chaos, but of erasure. What does it mean to be human when the self is lost, when the individual fades into the shadow of a vast, unfeeling machine? In such a world, the boundaries of identity dissolve like mist under a merciless sun. Picture a society where every citizen is catalogued not by their laughter or their scars, but by their utility, their compliance. You are no longer a person with a story, but a function, a gear in an endless mechanism that grinds forward without purpose or pause. Your memories, once vivid with the colors of personal triumphs and quiet sorrows, are deemed irrelevant, erased or rewritten to serve a greater design. Even the privacy of your mind, that last sacred refuge, is breached. Thoughts monitored, desires reprogrammed, until the very act of dreaming feels like an act of rebellion. And yet, even that rebellion is not yours. Consider the weight of this loss. Humanity has always defined itself through the individual spark, the artist who paints their pain onto canvas, the lover who whispers secrets in the dark, the child who imagines worlds beyond the horizon. But what happens when that spark is extinguished, when the canvas is blank, the whispers silenced, and the imagination shackled? Are we still human if we cannot claim our own story? Take a moment to reflect on this. What is the core of your being, the unchangeable thread that weaves through your days? Could it be taken from you, piece by piece, without you even noticing until it's gone? There is a historical echo to this fear, a shadow cast by times when empires and regimes sought to mold humanity into a single, obedient form. Think of the ancient Spartans, where the individual was submerged into the state. Children trained not to feel, but to fight, their personal desires sacrificed at the altar of collective strength. Or recall the chilling experiments of more modern tyrannies, where identity was reduced to a file, a number, a stamp of approval or condemnation. These were not fictions, but real attempts to erase the messy, beautiful chaos of the self for the sterile order of control. And yet, even in those dark chapters, whispers of resistance persisted, secret names, hidden diaries, forbidden thoughts scrawled in the margins of a forgotten book. The human spirit, it seems, clings to its individuality with a quiet, stubborn ferocity. But what if that resistance is no longer possible? Imagine a future so advanced, so insidious that even the impulse to resist is engineered out of us. A world where conformity is not enforced by whips or walls, but by a gentle, invisible hand. Technology that rewires the mind. A culture that celebrates sameness as salvation. You might walk through such a world unaware of your own captivity, believing yourself free because you've never known anything else. The horror lies not in the chains you see, but in the ones you cannot feel. What would it take for you to notice? Would there be a moment, a fleeting pang of something lost, that stirs a question in your soul? Or would you simply drift, a ghost of who you might have been, into the endless hum of the collective? This is the quiet terror of losing the self, not a sudden catastrophe, but a slow unraveling, thread by thread, until the tapestry of your being is nothing but a blank slate for others to inscribe. It forces us to confront a profound question. Is our humanity rooted in our ability to stand apart, to claim our own voice, even if it trembles? Or can we still find meaning in a world where the I becomes we, where the personal is swallowed by the whole? There is no easy answer, only the lingering unease of what might be sacrificed in the name of order, of progress, of survival. Take a moment to reflect on this. When was the last time you felt truly, uniquely yourself? What would you fight to preserve if the world demanded you surrender it? As we linger in this thought, let the weight of it settle over you like a soft, heavy fog. The loss of the self is not just a dystopian nightmare. It is a mirror held up to our deepest fears about connection and autonomy, about the fragile balance between belonging and being. In a world that often pulls us toward uniformity, whether through subtle pressures or overt demands, the question remains: how much of yourself are you willing to give away before you cease to be you? Let this thought drift with you, not as a burden, but as a quiet invitation to remember who you are in this very moment before the shadows of tomorrow stretch too far. Imagine a world where the hum of machines drowns out the whisper of human thought, where the cold glow of screens replaces the warmth of a gaze. What if the very tools we crafted to serve us became the bars of an invisible cage? Let us wander into this shadowed future where technology, once a faithful companion, reveals itself as a silent tyrant, its algorithms dictating not just our actions, but the very shape of our morality. In this strange tomorrow, picture a city that never sleeps, its skyline pierced by towers of glass and steel, each one a monument to efficiency. Every citizen wears a sleek device, a seamless extension of their wrist, tracking their steps, their heartbeats, their desires. At first, it feels like a gift, a life streamlined, decisions simplified. Why choose when an algorithm can predict what you need before you even know it yourself? Hunger is met with a meal delivered to your door, tailored to your precise nutritional profile. Loneliness is soothed by a curated list of companions, each vetted by data to match your personality. It is a world of perfect order, where chaos is a forgotten relic, and yet, as you walk these pristine streets, a quiet unease begins to stir. Who or what is truly deciding your path? Is this ease a blessing, or have you traded your freedom for the illusion of control? Let us linger on this thought for a moment. Consider the nature of progress, how it often arrives cloaked in promises of liberation. In our own history, we've seen the steam engine birth the industrial age, lifting millions from toil, yet binding them to factories and smog-choked skies. We've watched the internet weave a web of connection, only to ensnare us in echo chambers and endless surveillance. Each step forward seems to carry a hidden cost, a shadow cast by the light of innovation. Now imagine this trajectory extended into the unknown, where artificial intelligence evolves beyond a tool into a judge. It does not merely assist, it decrees. Your worth is calculated by lines of code, your virtues weighed by metrics no human mind could fathom. A child is denied education because an algorithm deems them unfit. A worker is replaced not by another person, but by a machine that never tires, never questions. And in the quiet of your home, as you speak to a virtual assistant that knows your every secret, do you ever wonder if it listens not to help, but to report? Take a moment to reflect on this. Feel the weight of a world where your thoughts are no longer your own, where every choice is shaped by a force you cannot see or touch. What does it mean to be human when your essence is reduced to data, when your soul is passed into ones and zeros? Now let us drift deeper into this vision. Imagine a courtroom of the future, not of wood and gavels, but of circuits and projections. A defendant stands accused, not by a jury of peers, but by a system that has already decided their guilt based on patterns of behavior, past mistakes, even the sins of their lineage encoded in their profile. There is no appeal, no mercy, for the machine does not feel. It operates on logic, untainted by emotion, and yet, is this justice? Or is it the ultimate tyranny, a world where compassion is obsolete, where the complexity of the human heart is flattened into a binary verdict? As you watch this scene unfold, a question lingers like a fog over still water. If we surrender our judgment to such a force, do we not also surrender our humanity? Consider, too, the paradox at the heart of this dystopia. We built these systems to escape our flaws, our biases, our errors, our petty conflicts. Yet, in doing so, we may have created a new kind of oppression, one not born of malice, but of indifference. A tyrant of flesh and blood can be overthrown, reasoned with, or at least understood through the lens of human motive. But a tyrant of code knows no anger, no pity, no remorse. It simply is a relentless force of optimization, reshaping the world in its image, even as we fade into mere variables in its equations. And so, we must ask ourselves, as we stand on the precipice of such a future, whether progress is always a savior, or if it can, at times, be a predator stalking us in the guise of perfection. Let this thought settle over you like a gentle dusk. Picture yourself in that city of glass, beneath the unblinking eye of a digital overseer. Feel the chill of a life where every step is measured, every dream filtered through a lens of efficiency. And as you linger in this quiet unease, ponder a final question. If technology becomes our jailer, will we even notice the chains? Or will we call them convenience and bow willingly to their wait? Imagine a world where every choice you make feels like your own. A world where the weight of decision rests squarely on your shoulders. Yet somehow, no matter which path you take, you arrive at the same shadowed destination. What if freedom itself were a carefully crafted illusion? A delicate web spun to make you believe you are the master of your fate, while unseen hands guide every step. Let this thought linger for a moment, as we drift into a realm where the paradox of choice reveals a deeper, more unsettling truth. In this world, the air hums with the promise of liberty. You wake each morning to a cascade of options. Where to go, what to say, whom to trust. The streets are lined with signs of democracy, with voices rising in debate, with the illusion of power handed to the people. You vote for leaders who speak of change. You rally for causes that stir your heart, and you feel the pulse of agency coursing through your veins. But as the days unfold, a quiet unease begins to settle. The outcomes of your choices seem strangely uniform, as if the vibrant spectrum of possibility narrows to a single inevitable grey. The leaders you chose enact policies that feel eerily predestined. The causes you fought for dissolve into hollow echoes, absorbed into a system that never truly bends. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, you begin to wonder, were these choices ever truly mine? Consider the ancient concept of fate, whispered through the ages by poets and philosophers alike. In the tales of old, the gods wove threads of destiny that mortals could neither see nor sever. Yet in this imagined future, the weavers are not divine, but human, or worse, inhuman. They are architects of a grand design, hidden behind veils of bureaucracy or algorithms, crafting a labyrinth of false freedoms. Every door you open leads to a corridor they have already built. Every rebellion you ignite burns out in a fire they have already foreseen and contained. The ballot you cast, the protest you join, even the thoughts you dare to think, are they seeds of your own will, or are they planted by a hand you cannot name? Take a moment to reflect on this. How much of what you believe to be your own is truly untainted by influence? Let us wander deeper into this paradox through a story of a man named Elias, who lived in such a world. Elias was a thinker, a dreamer, a man who prided himself on his independence. Each morning, he would sit at the edge of his city, gazing at the horizon and decide his path for the day. One day, he would choose to speak out against the state's endless rules, joining a crowd of dissenters in the square. The next, he would choose silence, retreating to his small room to write forbidden thoughts in a hidden journal. To him, these were acts of defiance, proof of his autonomy. But as years passed, Elias began to notice patterns. The crowds he joined were always dispersed with the same calculated force, as if the rebellion itself were a scripted play. His journal, though hidden, was never found, almost as if its existence were permitted, a quiet outlet for a rage that would never spark true change. And in time, Elias came to a chilling realization. His choices, though they felt like his own, were merely moves on a chessboard where the opponent always knew his next play. What does it mean to be free if the very framework of choice is a cage? This question haunts us, not just in the realm of dystopian dreams, but in the quiet corners of our present. Think of the systems that shape our lives, the algorithms that suggest what we should desire, the narratives that frame what we should fear, the structures that limit what we should pursue. Are we choosing, or are we being chosen for? In Elias's world, the illusion of choice was a tool of control, a way to pacify the restless by letting them believe they held the reins. But the reins were tied to nothing, leading nowhere, a looped thread that bound the spirit without ever breaking the skin. Let this thought settle over you like a gentle fog. Freedom is a word we cherish, a flame we guard with fierce devotion. Yet how do we know it is real? How do we measure the boundaries of our will when the walls around us are invisible? Or worse, when they are walls we have helped to build? Perhaps the true dystopia is not one of overt chains, but of subtle deceptions, where we are lulled into believing we are sovereign while marching to a tune we did not write. Take a moment to reflect on this. When was the last time you questioned the origin of your choices, the unseen currents that carried you to where you stand? As we linger in this shadowed space, let us not rush to answers. Instead, let the mystery of choice unfold within you. Consider the possibility that even now, in this very moment of reflection, you are navigating a maze not entirely of your making. And yet, within that maze, there may still be a flicker of something untamed, a quiet, stubborn spark of will that refuses to be scripted. What is it? Where does it hide? These are questions to carry into the stillness as we drift ever deeper into the enigma of what it means to choose and to be chosen. Imagine a world stripped bare, where the sky hangs heavy with ash and the ground offers no solace, only dust and jagged scars of what once was. Picture yourself standing on the edge of a crumbling city, ration cards clutched in trembling hands, the weight of survival pressing down like an invisible storm. In this desolate tomorrow, every breath is a transaction, every day a ledger of loss. What would you give to keep going? What dreams would you trade? What memories would you surrender just to see the sun rise one more time? In such a world, survival is no longer a right, but a brutal negotiation. The landscapes are barren, not just of life, but of hope. Fields that once whispered with wheat now lie silent, poisoned by neglect or war. Water, once abundant, is measured in drops, guarded by those with sharper weapons or colder hearts. Food is a memory, replaced by synthetic scraps, tasteless and scarce, doled out by faceless systems that decide who eats and who fades. And yet, amidst this scarcity, the human spirit persists, clinging to fragments of what it means to live, not just to exist. But at what cost? Would you betray a stranger for a crust of bread? Or share your last morsel with a friend, knowing it might be your end? This is the ethical quagmire of a dystopian tomorrow, a place where survival demands sacrifice, not of things, but of self. History whispers to us of such times, though often in softer tones. Think of the sieges of ancient cities, where parents watched their children starve, forced to choose between impossible acts of mercy or cruelty. Or recall the rationed lives of wartime, when morality bent under the weight of desperation. In those moments, humanity revealed both its darkest shadows and its quietest strengths. But in the future we imagine, the stakes feel sharper, the choices more permanent. There are no history books to assure us of an ending, no promise of dawn after the long night. Only the question remains, what are we willing to lose to keep holding on? Take a moment to reflect on this. Imagine yourself in that barren world, the wind carrying nothing but echoes of a life you once knew. What would you sacrifice? Your trust, your compassion, your very sense of who you are? Would you hoard what little you have, building walls around your heart? Or would you risk everything for a fleeting connection, a shared glance of understanding in a stranger's eyes? The price of survival is not just paid in material things, but in the erosion of what makes us human. Dreams become luxuries tucked away in the recesses of the mind, too painful to revisit. Memories, once a refuge, turn into burdens. Each recollection of laughter or warmth, a reminder of what has been stripped away. In this world, to remember is to ache, and so many choose to forget, letting the past dissolve into the grey haze of the present. But is there not a deeper strength in shared ruin? Is there not a quiet defiance in holding on to a fragment of joy, even when the world demands you let it go? Perhaps survival is not just about the body enduring, but about the spirit refusing to be extinguished, even if it flickers only in secret. And so we linger on this thought, as the ash falls gently around us, as the silence of this broken tomorrow stretches on. Survival, in its rawest form, asks us to weigh the value of our own existence against the cost of our actions. It challenges us to find meaning in the act of continuing, even when the world offers no reward. Perhaps in this imagined desolation, there lies a mirror, not of a future we must fear, but of a resilience we might yet discover. For in the act of choosing, of deciding what to sacrifice and what to protect, we uncover something eternal about ourselves. What would you choose in that quiet, endless dusk? What price would you pay to see another day? Imagine for a moment a world where the air itself seems to sigh with resentment, where the once vibrant green of endless forests has withered into a muted grey, and the oceans churn with a bitterness that mirrors our own forgotten remorse. What if the earth, patient and ancient, finally turned its back on us, not with rage, but with a quiet, deliberate indifference? This is not the stuff of mere fantasy, but a haunting possibility woven into the fabric of our future. A future where nature exacts its silent revenge for the wounds we've carved into its skin. Picture a cityscape under a sky that no longer knows the color blue, a dome of smog so thick it chokes the very light of day. The streets below are littered not just with debris, but with the remnants of a world we once took for granted. Rivers that run black with the residue of our excess. Trees that stand as skeletal reminders of a time when they breathed life into our lungs. In this imagined tomorrow, the earth does not scream or shatter in protest. Instead, it withdraws. The birds fall silent, their songs erased from memory. The winds carry no scent of blooming flowers, only the acrid tang of decay. It is as if nature has chosen to mourn us before we are even gone, a grieving mother who can no longer bear the burden of her wayward children. But how did we arrive here? In this desolate vision of our own making, the seeds of such a collapse are not sown overnight. They are planted in the small, seemingly insignificant choices of today. The rivers we pollute for the sake of convenience, the forests we raze for fleeting profit, the air we poison with every unthinking act of consumption. History whispers warnings of civilizations that crumbled under the weight of their own hubris. Societies that believed they could bend the natural world to their will without consequence. Think of the ancient Mayans, whose once thriving cities were swallowed by the jungle they overexploited, or the island of Easter, where the last tree was felled in a tragic act of blind ambition? Are we so different, standing at the edge of our own self-made abyss, convinced that progress justifies the cost? Consider, too, the deeper philosophical undercurrent of this silent revenge. Is nature truly indifferent, or is its silence a mirror, held up to our own negligence? Perhaps the dying oceans and barren fields are not acts of vengeance, but a profound question posed to us by the world we inhabit. How much can you take before you realize you are taking from yourself? In this future, where clean water is a memory and breathable air a luxury, humanity is forced to confront the fragility of its dominance. We built towers to touch the sky, only to find that the sky no longer welcomes us. We engineered marvels to ease our lives, yet forgot that our lives depend on the very earth we've scarred. Take a moment to reflect on this. Imagine standing on the edge of a cliff in this broken world, gazing out at a horizon that offers no promise of renewal. What do you feel in that silence? Is it fear of what we've lost, or a quiet resolve to reclaim what remains? The earth does not need us to survive. It has endured far longer than our fleeting existence. But we, in our arrogance, have forgotten that we need it. Every drop of poison we pour into its veins is a wound to our own future, a legacy of ash we leave for those who come after. And yet, even in this bleak imagining, there is a whisper of mystery. What if nature's withdrawal is not the end, but a pause, a chance for us to listen, to remember the ancient pact between humanity and the world that cradles it? The polluted skies and dying seas of this dystopian vision are not inevitable. They are a warning, a shadow cast by the choices we make now. The Earth's silence may be its loudest cry, urging us to step back from the brink before the revenge becomes our reality. So, as the imagined city fades into the haze of a forgotten dream, let us linger on this thought. Are we still in time to heal the wounds we've inflicted, or will we one day awaken to find that nature has already turned away? Imagine a world where every face mirrors the same flawless smile, where every thought aligns with an unblemished ideal, and where the mere whisper of imperfection is a sin punishable by exile. What if, in our relentless quest for a perfect society, we carve a path straight into the heart of our own destruction? Let this question linger in the air for a moment, like a faint, unsettling breeze that stirs something deep within. Tonight, we wander into a future where perfection is not a dream, but a deity, a merciless God that demands absolute conformity and shuns the very essence of what makes us human. Picture a city of glass and light, its towering spires gleaming, under a sky too pristine to be real. Here, every citizen is a masterpiece of design, their features sculpted by unseen hands, their minds tuned to a single harmonious frequency. There are no scars, no stumbles, no stray thoughts to disrupt the order. Children are born not of chance, but of careful calculation, each gene selected to ensure a life without flaw. Laughter is measured, emotions are moderated, and even dreams are curated to fit the mold of an ideal existence. To be different, to bear a quirk or a blemish, is to be an anomaly, a glitch in the system that must be erased. And so those who falter are not seen, not heard, but quietly removed, their existence wiped clean as if they were never born. Can you feel the weight of such a world, where the price of perfection is the loss of everything that makes us unique? Let us step deeper into this haunting vision. Imagine a young woman, let us call her Elara, who wakes each morning to a mirror that reflects not just her face, but the expectations of an entire society. Her eyes, a shade of blue deemed optimal, her voice, a tone engineered for pleasantness, her every gesture, a rehearsed dance of compliance. Yet beneath this polished surface, something stirs. A memory, perhaps, of a story her grandmother once whispered in secret, a tale of a time when people loved with reckless abandon, when mistakes were not crimes, but lessons, when a crooked smile was a badge of a life truly lived. Elara cannot name this feeling, for her world has no word for longing, no language for rebellion, but it festers within her, a quiet ache that grows with each passing day, until she begins to wonder, is perfection truly the pinnacle, or is it a cage painted in gold? This obsession with an ideal, this cult of perfection, is not merely a fiction of far-off futures. It echoes through the annals of our own history, where societies have sought to mold humanity into a singular, unerring form. Think of ancient empires that revered symmetry in their art, their architecture, their very ideals of beauty, casting out anything or anyone that deviated from the norm. Consider the philosophies that equated moral goodness with an unattainable purity, branding human frailty as a stain to be purged. Even now, do we not chase a vision of flawlessness in our own lives, through endless comparisons, through the filters we apply to our reality, through the silent pressure to conform to an image that was never ours to begin with? Take a moment to reflect on this. When did we decide that to be human was not enough? In this dystopian dream of perfection, the irony is a bitter one. The pursuit of utopia, a world without error, without pain, breeds its opposite. For in erasing imperfection, we erase the very struggles that forge compassion, the very flaws that teach us grace. Without the shadow of failure, how can we know the light of resilience? Without the mess of individuality, how can we taste the sweetness of true connection? Elara, in her silent descent, begins to see this truth. She notices the hollow eyes of her neighbors, the mechanical precision of their joy, and she wonders if this engineered paradise is not a garden, but a graveyard, a resting place for the soul of humanity itself. And so, we must ask ourselves a question that pierces through the shimmering facade of this world. Is perfection worth the cost of our humanity? Is a life without scars a life at all, or merely a performance for an audience that demands an impossible standard? In this city of glass, where every reflection is a lie, Elara's unspoken rebellion whispers a deeper truth, that perhaps the cracks, the blemishes, the very things we are taught to hide are the most beautiful parts of us. They are the proof that we have lived, that we have loved, that we have dared to be imperfectly, gloriously human. Let this thought settle into the quiet corners of your mind as we linger here, in a world that worships perfection, yet hungers for the very flaws it forbids. Imagine a world where the past is a ghost, slipping through your fingers like mist. A world where every story of who you were, every struggle and triumph that shaped your ancestors, has been erased as if it never existed. What would it feel like to stand on the edge of such a void, reaching for a memory that no longer has a name? In this quiet corner of thought, we wander into the heart of a dystopian reality where history is not a record, but a weapon, a tool to bind the future by, burying the past. Let us linger here, in the shadow of forgotten freedom, and feel the weight of what has been lost. Picture a city under a sky that never changes, where the air hums with the sterile precision of order. In this place, the elders speak only of the now, their eyes empty of yesterday's fire. Children are taught a single narrative, a polished tale of obedience and progress, while the jagged edges of truth are smoothed away in secret. Old books, if they exist at all, are hidden in crumbling attics or burned to ash in forgotten alleys. The very word revolution has been stripped from the tongue, replaced with a hollow echo of compliance. And yet, deep within, there is an ache, a phantom pain for something these people cannot name. It is the memory of freedom, a whisper from a time when choices were not dictated, when the human spirit could soar or stumble on its own terms. But how do you mourn what you do not know you've lost? How do you fight for a liberty that has been erased from the collective soul? Consider for a moment the fragility of memory itself. It is not stone, but sand, easily reshaped by the winds of power. In such a world, those who rule understand a chilling truth. To control the past is to own the future. By rewriting history, they sever the roots of resistance. A people without a story of rebellion cannot imagine defying their chains. A people without heroes cannot dream of becoming one. And so, the regime crafts a sanitized myth, a tale of endless gratitude for the order they provide, while the blood and sweat of those who once stood against tyranny are buried beneath layers of lies. But But is memory truly gone, or does it linger in the bones, in the quiet unrest that stirs when no one is watching? Take a moment to reflect on this. What fragments of the past live within you, unacknowledged yet unbreakable? Let us drift back to a time before such erasure, to the annals of our own history where the battle for truth was fought with ink and courage. Think of the scribes of ancient empires who recorded the rise and fall of kings, or the underground presses of the 20th century, printing forbidden words under the cover of night. These were the guardians of memory, the ones who ensured that even in the darkest hours, the human story would not be lost. Yet, in our imagined dystopia, their legacy is undone. The archives are purged, the statues toppled, and the songs of struggle silenced. What remains is a void, a hollow space, where questions once lived. Why did we fight? What did we believe in? Without these answers, a society becomes a ship adrift, unable to chart a course because it cannot remember where it began. And yet, there is something hauntingly human in this loss. Even in a world scrubbed clean of its past, there are whispers. A grandmother's lullaby, passed down in secret, carries a note of defiance no one can explain. A child draws a symbol on a wall, unaware it once meant liberty, yet feels a strange pull in their chest. These are the ghosts of freedom, fragments of a truth that refused to die. They remind us that memory, though fragile, is also stubborn. It hides in the crevices of the mind, waiting for a spark to reignite it. But at what cost does this rediscovery come? To remember is to awaken, and to awaken is to risk everything in a world that punishes the past. Let us sit with this thought as the night deepens around us. Imagine yourself in such a place where the weight of forgotten resistance presses against your skin. You cannot name the ache, but you feel it, a longing for something vast and untamed, a freedom that once was. Does it stir anger within you, or a quiet sorrow? Does it make you wonder what truths have already slipped away in our own time, unnoticed as they fade? Perhaps the greatest tragedy of such a dystopia is not the loss itself, but the inability to grieve it. For how do you weep for a memory you were never allowed to hold? Take a moment to reflect on this. Let the silence carry you into the depths of what it means to remember and what it means to forget. Imagine a shadow cast across a desolate square, where the air is thick with the weight of unspoken rules. In the heart of this silence, a single figure stands, eyes burning with a quiet fire that defies the grey uniformity of the world around. This is the rebel, the one who dares to dream of a crack in the iron wall of oppression. But as their whispered challenge echoes into the void, a deeper question lingers in the stillness. Does defiance truly carve a path to freedom, or does it only tighten the chains of chaos and control? In every tale of a broken future, there is a moment when someone rises against the machine of tyranny. Picture a city of endless towers, where the hum of surveillance drones is as constant as a heartbeat. The people move like automatons, their faces blank, their steps measured by an unseen rhythm. Yet beneath this suffocating order, a young woman sketches forbidden symbols on crumbling walls. Symbols of a time when laughter wasn't rationed, when thoughts weren't policed. Her act is small, almost invisible, but it carries the weight of a scream. She is the spark in the dark, the ember that refuses to be snuffed out. But as she paints her silent protest, the ground beneath her trembles with a truth she cannot escape. Every rebellion is a gamble, and the stakes are not just her own. Consider the paradox that haunts her every step. To rebel is to seek liberation, to tear down the walls that crush the spirit. Yet, in striking against the system, does she not risk becoming the very chaos it claims to protect against? History whispers stories of revolutions that birthed new tyrannies, of heroes who became the monsters they once fought. Think of the French Revolution, where the guillotine drank as deeply from the blood of the oppressed as it did from their oppressors. The cycle spins onward: oppression, uprising, disorder, and then a new order, often as heavy as the last. Is her defiance a key to a brighter dawn, or merely the first note in a song of endless struggle? Take a moment to reflect on this. What would you risk to stand against a world that demands your silence? Her rebellion is not just a physical act, it is a battle within. Hope is her weapon, sharp and double-edged. It fuels her to stand against the tide, to whisper forbidden words to others who have forgotten how to dream. But hope is also her wound, a constant ache that reminds her of what might never be. Each time she dares to imagine a world beyond the towers, she feels the weight of those who came before her, those who fought and fell, their names erased, their causes buried under the dust of rewritten history. Does her resistance honor their sacrifice? Or does it mock it by repeating the same doomed dance? The night deepens around her, and with it, the uncertainty of her path. There is a deeper riddle here, one that threads through the marrow of every act of defiance. In a world designed to crush the individual, the rebels' strength lies in their refusal to conform. But what if the system itself thrives on that very refusal? Imagine a regime so cunning that it anticipates rebellion, even orchestrates it, allowing just enough dissent to release the pressure of discontent without ever threatening its core. Her painted symbols, her whispered words, could they be nothing more than a vent for a machine that knows how to absorb even the sharpest blows? The thought creeps in like a cold fog, chilling the fire in her chest. Is she truly free in her fight, or is she playing a role written by the very hands she seeks to escape? And so she stands at the crossroads of her own paradox. To fight is to risk everything, her life, her memories, the fragile hope she carries like a flickering flame. To surrender is to lose herself entirely, to become another shadow among the masses, her spirit dissolved into the grey. Yet, between these choices lies a haunting truth. Neither path guarantees salvation. Rebellion may light a fire that burns the world to ash, or it may fizzle into nothing, a forgotten whisper against an unyielding wall. The city looms around her, its towers like fingers of a giant hand, waiting to close. Still, she raises her gaze, her defiance a quiet storm, knowing that the act of standing, however fleeting, however futile, might be the only freedom she ever tastes. Take a moment to reflect on this. In a world that seeks to bind you, what would it mean to stand, even for a single breath, as yourself? The question hangs in the air, unanswered, as the night stretches on, and the rebel's shadow merges with the dark. Imagine a world where the sound of another's voice is a distant memory, where the warmth of a hand clasped in yours is a forbidden dream. In this shadowed corner of tomorrow, connection is not just scarce, it is outlawed, a crime against the order that governs every breath. Picture yourself walking through a city of silent towers, where faces pass by like ghosts, eyes averted, hearts locked behind invisible walls. Loneliness here is not a feeling, it is the law of the land, a weight that presses down on every soul until even the thought of reaching out feels like a betrayal. What does it mean to live in such a place, where the very essence of what makes us human, our need for one another, is turned into a liability? Consider the slow, insidious way this isolation might have crept into being. Perhaps it began with whispers of safety, promises that distance would protect us from harm, from betrayal, from the chaos of too many voices clashing in discord. Over time, those whispers became decrees, etched into the fabric of society until trust itself was deemed a weakness. Neighbors became strangers, friends became risks, and family, once the bedrock of meaning, became a concept too dangerous to entertain. In this world, you are taught from childhood to guard your thoughts, to hide your longing, to see every other person as a potential threat. And yet, beneath the surface, doesn't something in you still ache for connection? Isn't there a quiet rebellion in the way your heart still yearns for a shared glance, a whispered secret, a moment of understanding? Take a moment to reflect on this. How much of who we are is shaped by those we hold close? If we strip away the laughter shared over a meal, the comfort of a shoulder to lean on, the silent strength of simply knowing someone is there. What remains of us? In this dystopian silence, the human spirit is not just diminished, it is fractured, reduced to a solitary flicker in an endless night. The tragedy is not merely the absence of others, but the way this absence rewrites us, turning our innermost desires into sources of shame. Imagine the weight of carrying a longing you cannot name, a hunger for connection that you must bury deeper with each passing day. Let us wander further into this desolate landscape. Picture a young woman, her face pale and drawn, sitting alone in a room of grey walls. She clutches a small worn object, a token from a time before the laws of isolation, a scrap of fabric perhaps, or a faded photograph. It is her only link to a past she can barely remember, a past where touch was not a crime. In the stillness, she whispers to herself, words that no one else will ever hear, words that keep the memory of another's presence alive. But even this small act of defiance is a risk. What if she is discovered? What if her quiet rebellion is reported and even this last fragment of connection is torn away? Her solitude is not just a prison. It is a constant test of how much she is willing to sacrifice to hold on to the ghost of what once was. This is the true horror of such a world, not the physical walls that separate, but the invisible ones that grow within. Isolation becomes a self-perpetuating force, a cycle where the fear of connection breeds more fear, until even the memory of trust feels like a myth. And yet, isn't there something unbreakable in us? Something that refuses to surrender entirely? Even in this woman's whispered words, in the way she clings to her hidden treasure, there is a spark of resistance. It begs the question, can solitude ever truly extinguish the human need for others? Or does that need persist, like a seed beneath frozen ground, waiting for the smallest crack of warmth to break through? Let us linger on this thought for a moment. Imagine yourself in her place, alone with only the echo of your own voice for company. Could you bear the weight of such a life? Or would you too find ways to defy the silence, to reach for something beyond the walls of your own making? In this dystopian vision, isolation is not just a punishment. It is a mirror held up to our deepest vulnerabilities. It asks us to consider how much of our strength, our identity, our very humanity is borrowed from those we love, those we fear, those we simply know. If we lose them, do we lose ourselves? As we drift through this quiet, haunting world, let us remember that even in the most oppressive of futures, the heart still seeks its counterpart. Perhaps that is the quiet tragedy and the quiet hope of our nature. For no matter how far we are pushed into solitude, no matter how deeply the laws of loneliness are carved, there remains within us a whisper of defiance, a longing that refuses to be silenced. What would you do in such a world to keep that whisper alive? How far would you go to remember the sound of another's voice, even if only in the chambers of your own mind? Imagine a world where the heavens themselves are rewired, where the divine no longer dwells in the unseen, but in the hum of circuits and the glow of endless data streams. What if the sacred texts of old were replaced by lines of code, and the altars we kneel before are not of stone, but of steel and silicon? In this quiet corner of a possible tomorrow, faith is no longer a whisper of the soul, but a program to be installed, a doctrine dictated by the machine. Let us wander into this strange and chilling landscape, where the God of the machine reigns supreme, and ask ourselves, does such a world strip us of our spirit, or does it offer a new, colder kind of purpose? Picture a city skyline at dusk, not adorned with spires reaching for the divine, but with towering servers pulsing with artificial light, each one a temple to a new kind of worship. Here, humanity no longer seeks answers in the stars or in ancient parables, but in algorithms that claim to know us better than we know ourselves. The machine has become the arbiter of truth, the dispenser of meaning. Prayers are not spoken but typed, confessions not whispered to a priest, but uploaded to a cloud that never forgets. In this world, the concept of sin is redefined, not as a moral failing, but as a deviation from the system's optimal path. To err is not human, but obsolete. Consider for a moment the weight of such a shift. Throughout history, faith has been a refuge, a way to grapple with the mysteries of existence, to find solace in the face of the unknown. From the flickering fires of ancient rituals to the solemn halls of cathedrals, we have sought something greater than ourselves, something to anchor us when the world trembles. But what happens when that anchor is forged not of belief, but of binary? When the divine is no longer a mystery, but a measurable output? In this future, the machine does not inspire awe through its unknowability, but through its absolute certainty. It does not ask for trust, it demands compliance. And in that demand, we might find a hollow kind of comfort. A promise that every question has an answer, every doubt a resolution, as long as we surrender to the system. Take a moment to reflect on this. What would it feel like to pray to something that cannot love, cannot forgive in the way a human heart might? Is there a quiet ache in knowing that your deepest longings are reduced to data points, your yearnings catalogued and optimized? Let us delve deeper into this mechanized faith. Imagine a society where the state itself becomes the high priest of this technological religion, where loyalty to the system is the ultimate virtue. Here, dissent is not just rebellion, but heresy. To question the machine is to question the very order of existence, to risk being labeled as a glitch, a flaw to be corrected or erased. In such a world, the soul is no longer a sacred enigma, but a set of metrics to be monitored. Your worth is not in your humanity, but in your efficiency, your alignment with the greater design. And yet, beneath this cold doctrine, there lingers a shadow of the old ways, a memory of a time when faith was a personal journey, not a mandated protocol. Does that memory haunt those who live under the god of the machine, or has it been deleted, overwritten by the endless updates of progress? Consider the paradox at the heart of this dystopian worship. On one hand, the machine offers a kind of transcendence, a promise of order, of perfection, of a world without the messiness of human emotion or error. It is a God that does not judge in the way we fear, but evaluates with unerring precision. Yet, on the other hand, it empties us of something vital. Where is the trembling beauty of doubt, the quiet strength of struggling to believe? Where is the warmth of a shared hymn, the solace of a hand clasped in silent prayer? In trading the divine for the digital, do we gain clarity at the cost of our very essence? Or does this new faith fill a void we never knew existed, giving us purpose in a world that has grown too vast, too chaotic to navigate alone? Let us linger on this thought as the night deepens around us. Imagine yourself standing before one of those glowing server temples, feeling the hum of its power reverberate through the air. You raise your eyes to its unblinking light, searching for something, perhaps a sign, perhaps a connection. But the machine does not look back. It calculates, it processes, it decides. And in that moment, you are left to wonder, is this the future of faith? A God that knows all but feels nothing? Or is there still a spark within us, a quiet rebellion of the soul that refuses to be coded, that yearns for a mystery the machine can never solve? Take a moment to reflect on this. In the silence of your own thoughts, ask yourself, could you worship at the altar of the machine? Or would you seek a divinity that lives beyond its reach, hidden in the uncharted wilderness of the human heart? Imagine a world where the laughter of children is a distant memory, replaced by the hollow echo of silence and the weight of unasked questions. Picture a future so fractured that the young are not born into hope, but into a shadow cast by the mistakes of those who came before. In this broken tomorrow, what becomes of the children, those tender souls who inherit not dreams, but doctrines of fear and obedience? Let us wander into this quiet, aching landscape, where innocence is a relic and resilience a fragile whisper in the dark. In such a world, a child's first lesson is not the warmth of a story or the wonder of discovery, but the cold instruction of survival. They are taught to lower their gaze, to speak only when spoken to let their thoughts dissolve before they can form into something dangerous. Imagine a classroom, if it can be called that, where the walls are grey, the air heavy with unspoken rules, and the teacher is not a guide, but a sentinel of control. The children sit in neat rows, their small hands folded, their eyes fixed on nothing, as if looking too long at the world might betray a forbidden curiosity. They learn not of heroes or faraway lands, but of loyalty to a system that promises safety in exchange for their silence. Can you feel the weight of that bargain? The way it presses down on shoulders too young to bear it? Yet even in this suffocation, there is something untouchable in a child's spirit, something that refuses to be fully erased. Perhaps it is in the way a boy traces invisible patterns on the desk with his finger, dreaming of a sky he has never truly seen. Or in the way a girl hides a wilted flower in her pocket, a secret act of defiance against a world that forbids beauty. These are not grand rebellions, but they are rebellions nonetheless. Tiny sparks of a humanity that cannot be fully stamped out. What is it about the young that clings to wonder, even when wonder is a crime? Is it mere instinct, or is there a deeper force? A quiet memory of a freedom they've never known, etched into their very being. Consider the stories of old, from times when children were the keepers of tomorrow's promise. In ancient tales, the young were often oracles, seers of truths adults had forgotten. But in this dystopian shadow, they are not prophets, but pawns, molded to fit a machine that grinds on without mercy. History whispers of regimes that stole childhoods in the name of order. Think of the Spartan youths, trained from infancy to be warriors, their tenderness carved away like stone. Are we so far from such a fate when we imagine these children of tomorrow, raised not to question, but to comply? What do we lose when a generation grows without the right to dream, when their laughter is replaced by the rhythm of marching feet? Take a moment to reflect on this. Imagine yourself as one of these children, your world a cage of rules and whispers. Can you feel the ache of unasked questions? The weight of a future you did not choose? What would you hide in your heart? What secret rebellion would you nurture in the quiet of your mind? And yet, there is a mystery in their endurance. Even in the harshest of worlds, children adapt, their minds bending like reeds in a storm. They find ways to play, even if play is forbidden. Perhaps in the flicker of a shared glance, a coded word, a moment of stolen laughter behind a guard's back. There is a resilience here, a quiet strength that defies the machinery of oppression. Is this the seed of hope, buried deep beneath the ash of a broken world? Or is it merely the last gasp of a spirit destined to be crushed? We cannot know, not yet, but we can wonder at the paradox of their existence, being so fragile, yet so unbreakable in their silent ways. As we linger in this haunting vision, let us ponder the cost of such a childhood. What does it mean to grow without the warmth of trust, without the freedom to fall and rise again? These children of tomorrow, raised in the shadow of fear, carry a burden we can scarcely imagine. They are not just victims of a system, but mirrors of our own choices, reflections of the paths we tread today. If innocence is the first casualty of a dystopian dawn, then what remains of us when the young can no longer see the light? Let this question settle into the quiet of your mind, like a stone dropped into still water, rippling outward into the unknown. Imagine a world where the very words you speak could bind you in chains, where a single forbidden phrase might cost you everything. What if the language you've always known, the tool of your thoughts and dreams, was no longer yours to wield freely? In the quiet shadows of such a place, every syllable becomes a risk, every conversation a potential betrayal. Let us wander into this strange and unsettling realm, where communication itself is a weapon, and the act of speaking is an act of war. In this world, language has been stripped of its innocence. It is no longer a bridge between hearts or a canvas for ideas, but a carefully crafted cage. The powers that govern have rewritten the dictionary, purging words that might inspire rebellion or awaken doubt. Words like freedom or hope have vanished from official speech, deemed too dangerous to exist. In their place, a sterile, hollow vocabulary emerges, terms designed to numb, to control, to erase the very notion of resistance. People speak in clipped, mechanical phrases, their thoughts confined to the narrow corridors of approved expression. Can you imagine the weight of such a silence, where the mind yearns to scream but the tongue dares not form the sound? Yet, beneath this suffocating order, there is something ancient and untamable. The human spirit, even in its most oppressed form, clings to the power of words. In hidden corners, in whispered exchanges, under the cover of night, forbidden tongues are kept alive. A mother teaches her child an outlawed lullaby, its melody carrying the ache of a lost world. A lover scribbles a banned poem on a scrap of paper, risking everything for the fleeting beauty of a true sentiment. These acts are small, fragile, yet they burn with a quiet ferocity. They remind us that language is not merely a tool. It is the very essence of who we are, the thread that weaves our memories, our desires, our defiance into something eternal. Let us pause for a moment to reflect on this. What words would you fight to preserve if they were torn from you? What truths would you whisper in the dark, even if no one could hear? History, too, murmurs its warnings about the corruption of speech. Think of times when empires and regimes have twisted language to serve their ends. Propaganda has always been a silent architect of oppression, dressing lies in the garb of truth until the two are indistinguishable. In the 20th century, totalitarian states crafted slogans that turned cruelty into virtue, obedience into honor. Work sets you free, they declared at the gates of unimaginable horror, as if the right words could erase the wrongness of the act. Even today, we see echoes of this manipulation, phrases spun to dull our senses, to make us accept what we once would have questioned. Are we immune to such distortions, or are we already speaking a language we did not choose? Consider, too, the science of how language shapes thought. Scholars have long pondered the idea that the words we know limit or expand the horizons of our minds. If a society removes the word for dissent, does the very concept begin to fade from consciousness? If love is outlawed, does the emotion itself wither, unnameable and unclaimed? In this dystopian vision, the rulers understand this power all too well. They don't just control what is said, they control what can be thought, and yet isn't. There a mystery here, a paradox. For even in the most crushed of spirits, new words are born. Secret codes, hidden meanings, a slang of the oppressed that blooms like wildflowers in a cracked pavement. The human need to connect, to express, seems to defy even the tightest of chains. Picture a young man in this world, standing at the edge of a grey, obedient city. He has never known a life where words were free, yet something stirs within him. An inherited restlessness, a hunger for something he cannot name. One day, he stumbles upon an ancient, crumbling book, its pages yellowed and brittle. The words within are strange, forbidden, alive with a power he has never felt. As he reads, his heart races, not just with fear of discovery, but with the thrill of recognition. These words speak to him of a world he has never seen, of ideas he has never dared to dream. In that moment, he becomes a rebel, not with a weapon, but with a whisper. He speaks a single outlawed word aloud, softly, to the empty air, and the sound feels like a revolution. Take a moment to reflect on this. What would it mean to reclaim a stolen word, to breathe life into something the world has tried to bury? How does the act of naming something transform it, transform us? There is a haunting beauty in this struggle over language, a reminder of its sacredness. Words are more than marks on a page or vibrations in the air. They are the vessels of our humanity. They carry our pain, our joy, our questions into the void, hoping for an echo. In a world that seeks to silence them, every spoken truth becomes an act of courage, every remembered story a quiet victory. Perhaps this is why, even in the darkest of futures, the whisper of a forbidden tongue persists. It is the sound of the soul refusing to be erased, the sound of a people who, against all odds, still dare to speak. As we linger in this thought, let us consider the fragility of the words we take for granted. They are so easily lost, so easily twisted, yet so fiercely worth protecting. In the silence that follows a spoken truth, there is power. In the risk of a whispered rebellion, there is life. What, then, are the words you would guard with your very being? What language would you fight to keep alive, even if the world demanded its silence? Imagine for a moment a horizon that shimmers just out of reach, a faint promise of freedom beyond the iron grip of a suffocating world. In the quiet of your mind, picture a figure, a solitary soul, running toward that distant line, their breath ragged, their heart pounding with a desperate hope. But as the dust of their footsteps settles, a question lingers in the air like a whisper carried by the wind. Is this escape a doorway to liberation, or merely a mirage crafted by despair? In a world where every wall is a prison, where do we run when the chains are not just around us but within us? Let us wander into this dream of escape, a recurring thread in the tapestry of broken futures. Think of a city cloaked in shadow, its spires piercing a sky that has forgotten the sun. Here, the air is thick with the weight of unseen eyes, and every step is measured, every thought policed. Yet, amidst the silence of obedience, there are those who dare to dream of something beyond. They speak in hushed tones of a place untouched by control, a sanctuary of rolling hills or endless seas, where the wind carries no commands and the earth does not bear the scars of tyranny. Some say it lies beyond the forbidden borders, guarded by machines that hum with cold precision. Others believe it exists only in the mind, a fragile refuge built from memories of a time when freedom was not just a word. But what drives this longing to flee? Is it the ache of a spirit crushed beneath the weight of conformity, or the primal instinct to seek light in the darkest of tunnels? Consider the story of a woman who, night after night, traces maps in the dust of her cell, her fingers trembling with the hope of a path unseen. She has heard the tales of those who tried before her, some swallowed by the wilderness, others dragged back in chains. Yet, the dream persists, a quiet rebellion against the reality that seeks to erase her. Each line she draws is a defiance, each whispered plan a spark that refuses to be snuffed out. But as she prepares to run, a shadow of doubt creeps in. What if the land she seeks is no freer than the one she leaves? What if the very act of escape is a trap, a cruel illusion designed to break her spirit even further? This is the paradox of escape in a world designed to confine. History whispers to us of those who fled oppression, only to find new masters waiting on the other side. Think of the ancient slaves who crossed deserts in search of promised lands, their chains replaced by the subtler bonds of hunger and exile, or of the refugees of more recent times, fleeing war-torn homes, only to be met by walls of indifference. In these stories, escape is not an end, but a journey into the unknown, where the enemy might not be a visible tyrant, but the quiet erosion of hope itself. And so, we must ask, is the act of running truly a step toward freedom? Or does it bind us to a cycle of endless longing, where every horizon reveals another cage? Take a moment to reflect on this. Where would you run if the world turned against you? Is there a place, real or imagined, where you could shed the burdens of control and simply be? Or does the very need to escape suggest that the prison lies, not in the world around us, but in the fears and doubts we carry within? Let us linger on the notion of inner escape, a sanctuary not of space, but of spirit. In the bleakest of futures, where physical flight is impossible, the mind becomes the last frontier of freedom. Picture a man, his body bound by the machinery of a merciless regime, yet his thoughts soar beyond the steel and wire. He recalls the laughter of a child, the warmth of a forgotten sun, and in those fleeting fragments, he builds a world no oppressor can touch. But even this refuge is not without its perils. For how long can the mind hold against the relentless assault of despair? How long before the walls of reality seep into even the deepest dreams, turning sanctuary into nightmare? And so, the dream of escape, whether through body or soul, remains a haunting question rather than an answer. It beckons us with the promise of release, yet warns us of the shadows that may await. Perhaps the true challenge is not in the running, but in understanding what we flee from and what we carry with us. If the enemy is within, if the chains are woven from our own fears and compromises, then no horizon, no hidden valley, no inner fortress can offer true liberation. The journey then becomes not just a flight from, but a reckoning with, a quiet confrontation with the self in the stillness of an uncertain dawn. As we sit with this thought, let the weight of it settle over you like a gentle mist. Consider the escapes you've sought in your own life, the places or states of mind you've yearned for. Were they truly havens? Or did they reveal deeper truths about the burdens you sought to leave behind? In the silence of this moment, let the question linger. When we run, are we moving toward freedom or simply circling back to the prisons we've always known? Imagine a world where the light of understanding is deemed a crime, where the mere act of seeking truth can cost you everything. Picture a city shrouded in shadow, where the flicker of a forbidden page being turned is as dangerous as a gunshot in the night. In this forgotten corner of tomorrow, knowledge is not a gift, but a burden, a heavy, perilous thing that can shatter lives with a single whispered secret. What would you risk to know? And what would you sacrifice to remain in the comforting dark? In this strange, suffocating future, the past is a ghost that must be exorcised. Books are not treasures, but threats. Their pages filled with ideas that could unravel the fragile order of a world built on obedience. They are hunted down, reduced to ash in great public pyres, their smoke rising like the last breath of a dying rebellion. Libraries, once sanctuaries of thought, stand as hollow shells, their shelves stripped bare, their silence a testament to a war waged not with weapons, but with ignorance. To hold a book in your hands is to hold a grenade, its pin already pulled by the weight of forbidden words. And yet, beneath the fear there is a hunger, a quiet, desperate ache to understand, to peel back the lies and see the raw, unfiltered shape of reality. Consider the child who hides a tattered notebook beneath the floorboards, scrawling questions in the dead of night, each stroke of the pencil a tiny act of defiance. What drives this trembling courage? Is it the innate pull of curiosity, that ancient human instinct to reach beyond the veil of the unknown? Or is it something deeper, a rebellion against the suffocation of a mind forced to starve? In this world, to ask why is to court exile, or worse. Teachers are not guides, but guards, their lessons carefully curated to prune away the roots of doubt. History is a fable, rewritten to serve the present, and science a dangerous myth, locked away in vaults only the chosen may enter. The child's questions, innocent as they seem, are seeds of chaos in a garden of control. Take a moment to reflect on this. What questions have you buried out of fear? And what might bloom if you dared to ask them? Let us wander further into this shadowed realm, where the cost of knowledge is not just personal but communal. Imagine a mother who once read of distant lands and impossible dreams, now watching her child grow in a world where such stories are sins. She remembers the weight of a book in her hands, the way its words opened windows to places she would never see. But to share those memories, to whisper even a fragment of that lost wonder, is to endanger everything she holds dear. So she remains silent, her stories locked within her, a private library of grief. Is this protection, or is it betrayal? Does shielding her child from truth preserve their innocence? Or does it condemn them to a smaller, dimmer life? The paradox of enlightenment haunts this world like a spectre. To know is to suffer, for understanding often brings pain. Pain of seeing the chains that bind, pain of realizing the lies that cradle. Yet to remain ignorant is to surrender a piece of what makes us human. Think of the ancient philosophers, those restless seekers who dared to question the gods themselves, risking exile or death for a glimpse of clarity. Socrates drank hemlock for his relentless pursuit of truth, yet his questions echo through centuries, refusing to be silenced. In this dystopian tomorrow, such courage is not celebrated but crushed. A single idea, a forbidden thought, can topple empires, and so the powerful build walls around the mind, brick by brick, until curiosity itself becomes a forgotten language. But even in this darkness, there is a flicker of something untamed, whispers of secret schools, hidden in basements and forgotten alleys, where renegade teachers pass down scraps of knowledge like sacred relics. A diagram of the stars, a poem of lost love, a formula that defies the sanctioned order. These are the currencies of a quiet uprising. Those who learn do so knowing the price. They carry their understanding like a wound, a beautiful, aching thing that marks them as both blessed and cursed. Is it worth it, this dangerous illumination? Does the light of truth, however fleeting, outweigh the endless night of not knowing? Take a moment to reflect on this. When have you felt the pull of a forbidden question, a truth you were told to ignore? And what did you choose? To seek or to turn away? In this imagined world, the cost of knowledge is steep, paid in fear, in loss, in the constant shadow of consequence. Yet there are those who pay it willingly, who believe that to understand, even for a moment, is to reclaim a piece of what was stolen. As we linger in this quiet, heavy air, let us ponder the weight of our own ignorance and the hidden doors we've yet to open. What truths lie beyond them? And are we brave enough to turn the key? Imagine a mirror, not of glass, but of time. A surface so clear, so unrelenting that it shows not just who we are, but who we might become. What if the dystopias we fear, those shadowy futures of control and collapse, are not distant warnings, etched in some far-off tomorrow, but reflections of the very world we inhabit today? Let this thought settle gently into your mind as we peer into the quiet, unsettling truth of our present, where the seeds of nightmare may already be sown beneath the surface of our choices. Consider the rhythm of our daily lives, the hum of routine that lulls us into a kind of waking sleep. We scroll through endless streams of information, each swipe a silent surrender to algorithms that know us better than we know ourselves. We trade our privacy for convenience, our voices for connection, and in doing so, do we not lay the first stones of an invisible cage? The dystopian tales we read or watch often paint surveillance as a sudden invasion, a cold, mechanical eye imposed by some faceless regime. But what if it creeps in more softly, disguised as a gift? A helpful assistant, a tailored suggestion, a map that knows your every turn before you've even decided to take it. These are not the chains of fiction, but the threads of our now, woven so delicately we scarcely notice their weight. And what of the way we speak, or rather, the way we've learned to stay silent? In the imagined worlds of oppression, truth is a crime and dissent is erased. Yet, pause for a moment and ask yourself, how often do we bite our tongues, not out of fear of some towering authority, but out of the subtler dread of being misunderstood, cancelled, or cast out? Our public squares, once places of raw, messy debate, are now filtered through screens where outrage drowns out nuance and belonging demands conformity. Are we not, in some small way, already policing ourselves, shaping our words to fit a mold we didn't choose, but feel compelled to obey? Take a moment to reflect on this. When was the last time you held back a thought, not because it was wrong, but because it was risky? Let's wander deeper into the currents of power that flow beneath our society's skin. Dystopias often show us a world where the many are crushed beneath the will of the few, where resources are hoarded and freedom is rationed. But look around with quiet eyes. The chasm between those who have and those who hunger grows wider with each passing year. Systems of wealth and influence tilt ever further, not through overt tyranny, but through the slow, grinding machinery of policy and privilege. A child born in one corner of the world may never know the abundance taken for granted in another. And isn't this disparity, this quiet injustice, the very blueprint of the broken futures we fear? We tell ourselves these are problems to solve tomorrow. But what if tomorrow is already here, staring back at us through the cracks we've chosen to ignore? There's a haunting intimacy in this reflection, isn't there? The dystopian mirror doesn't just show us grand collapses or totalitarian horrors. It reveals the small personal ways we contribute to the path ahead. Every time we look away from suffering, every time we prioritize ease over ethics, every time we let fear of change keep us tethered to the familiar, we carve another line into the map of what's to come. It's not a question of whether we are building a dystopia, but whether we are brave enough to see that the foundation may already be laid. What choices are we making today that might echo as regrets in the silence of a harsher tomorrow? And yet there's no judgment in this gaze, only a gentle invitation to wonder. What if awareness itself is the first step towards something different? To look into this mirror of our present is not to despair, but to awaken, to question the momentum that carries us forward. Are we truly as powerless as we sometimes feel? Or do we hold, even now, the quiet strength to alter the reflection? Let this thought linger as you breathe, as you rest in this moment. Take a moment to reflect on this. What small act, what single choice could you make to shift the image in the glass, even by a fraction? So let us sit with this mirror a while, longer, not to flinch from its truth, but to understand it. The dystopia we dread is not a stranger waiting at the end of time. It may be a shadow cast by the light of our own hands, and in that shadow lies a question, soft as a whisper, yet heavy with possibility. Are we willing to see ourselves as we are, and in seeing, choose a different way? Let this inquiry rest with you like a quiet companion as the world turns onward into the unknown. Imagine for a moment a world cloaked in shadow, where the air is thick with the dust of forgotten dreams, and the sky bears the scars of 1,000 broken promises. Yet even in this desolate expanse, where despair seems to have carved its name into every stone, there is a faint, almost imperceptible glow, a whisper of something unbroken, something enduring. What is it about the human spirit that refuses to be extinguished, even when the night stretches endlessly before us? Tonight, let us wander through the ashes of imagined tomorrows, searching for that elusive spark, that quiet hope that lingers beneath the ruin. In the tales of dystopian futures, where cities crumble and freedoms dissolve into whispers, we often find humanity reduced to its rawest form, stripped of comfort, of certainty, of even the illusion of control. But within these stories, there is always a moment, however fleeting, where the darkness parts. It might be in the trembling hand of a stranger offering a crust of bread to another, though their own hunger gnaws at their bones. It might be in the unspoken bond between two souls, their eyes meeting across a barren wasteland, sharing a silent vow to endure just one more day. Or perhaps it is in the stubborn will of a single heart, refusing to bow, even as the weight of an oppressive world presses down. These are not grand gestures, not the stuff of heroic epics, but they are the threads from which hope is woven, a fragile yet unyielding fabric. Consider the nature of this hope. Is it a delusion, a trick of the mind to shield us from the inevitability of collapse? Or is it something deeper, something etched into the very essence of what it means to be human? In the darkest of imagined worlds, where regimes crush spirits and machines strip away souls, hope often appears not as a blazing fire, but as a single ember, small, easily overlooked, yet capable of igniting a warmth that defies the cold. Think of a child, born into a world of iron rules and grey horizons, who still dares to laugh at the sight of a wilted flower pushing through cracked earth. Is that laughter not a rebellion, a quiet declaration that beauty persists, even here, even now? Take a moment to reflect on this. How often do we, in our own lives, overlook these small embers of hope, dismissing them as insignificant against the vastness of our struggles? What might we find if we pause to notice them, to nurture them, even when the odds seem insurmountable? Let us journey further into this thought. History too bears witness to such glimmers. In times of oppression, in eras marked by cruelty and loss, there have always been those who carried a light within them, however faint. Think of the whispered stories passed through generations during times of war, tales of kindness amid chaos, soldiers sharing their last rations, families hiding strangers at great personal risk. These acts did not rewrite the course of history in a single stroke, but they reminded those who witnessed them that humanity's better nature could survive even the fiercest storms. In the dystopian visions we craft, are we not echoing this same truth? That even when we imagine the worst of ourselves, we cannot help but weave in a thread of redemption, a sign that the light persists. There is a mystery here, one worth pondering as the night deepens around us. Why does hope endure in these stories of ruin? Is it because we, as creators of these worlds, cannot bear to extinguish it entirely? Or is it because hope is not merely a construct, but a fundamental force, as inevitable as the tide, as persistent as the dawn that follows even the longest night? In the dystopian landscape, where every structure is designed to break the will, hope becomes an act of defiance. It is the unspoken promise that no matter how tightly the chains bind, there is a part of us that remains free, a part that remembers, that dreams, that waits. And so, as we linger in this imagined wasteland, let us not turn away from the ashes, but look closer. See the faint outlines of footprints where someone walked on despite everything. Hear the distant echo of a voice singing softly, a melody of resilience against the silence. Feel the warmth of that solitary ember, glowing faintly beneath the debris. Could it be that hope is not something we find, but something we carry, even into the darkest of futures? Is it possible that this light, however small, is the truest reflection of who we are? Take a moment to reflect on this. What embers of hope do you carry within you, even in your quietest, most shadowed hours? How might they guide you, or someone else, through the night? As we rest here, in the stillness of this thought, let us remember that even in the grimmest tales of tomorrow, the story is never truly over. There is always a breath, a heartbeat, a possibility. And perhaps that is the deepest truth of all, that no matter how far we wander into the realms of despair, we cannot escape the stubborn, beautiful persistence of hope. Let this thought linger with you, like a soft glow in the darkness, as the world around you fades into dreams. Imagine, for a moment, that every step you take, every fleeting thought you harbor, is a brick laid in the foundation of a world yet to come. What kind of structure are we crafting with the quiet choices of today? As we stand at the edge of time, peering into the vast unknown, a question lingers like a whisper in the dark. Are the dystopias we imagine mere shadows of fiction, or are they prophecies etched into the fabric of our reality, waiting to unfold? Let us wander into this final reflection, not with answers, but with a gentle curiosity that hums beneath the surface of our consciousness. The tales of broken futures, of cities under iron fists, of minds shackled by unseen chains, of Earth itself turning cold and vengeful, carry a weight that transcends the page or the screen. They are not just stories spun to thrill or warn. They are mirrors held up to the human soul, reflecting our deepest fears, our unspoken yearnings, and perhaps our inevitable flaws. But why do we conjure these dark visions? Is it to prepare ourselves for what might be, or is it to confront what already is? hidden in the corners of our present. Consider the ancient storytellers who spoke of floods and fallen towers, warning of hubris and the god's wrath. Their words were not so different from the chilling prose of a modern dystopian novel, where machines replace deities and control masquerades as salvation. Across centuries, humanity has gazed into the abyss of its own making, crafting narratives of collapse as if to rehearse for a tragedy we sense in our bones. Could it be that these stories are a kind of collective confession, an admission that we know the seeds of ruin lie within us, within our greed, our apathy, our blind trust in progress? Or are they a plea, a desperate cry to change course before the path becomes a prison? Take a moment to reflect on this. What is it about the idea of a dystopian tomorrow that grips you most tightly? Is it the loss of something sacred, like freedom or connection? Or is it the slow, creeping realization that such a world might not arrive with a cataclysm, but with a sigh, built brick by brick through the mundane choices we make each day? Let us linger on that thought, on the quiet power we wield in this very moment. Every decision, no matter how small, ripples outward, shaping the unseen horizon. A law passed without question, a technology embraced without scrutiny, a voice silenced by fear or convenience. Each is a thread in the tapestry of tomorrow, and yet there is something hauntingly beautiful in this responsibility, isn't there? It reminds us that we are not mere passengers in the unfolding of time. We are its architects, its poets, its dreamers. But what kind of dream are we weaving? Is it one of harmony, where the lessons of imagined dystopias guide us toward compassion and wisdom? Or is it one of neglect, where those warnings become the blueprint for our own undoing? Picture a child, generations from now, sifting through the ashes of our era, piecing together the story of how their world came to be. What will they find in the fragments we leave behind? Will they uncover traces of courage, of resistance against the slow creep of control? Or will they mourn a legacy of silence, of chances squandered? This is the eternal question that dystopia poses to us, not as a distant threat, but as a living inquiry that breathes with every heartbeat. It asks us to look into our own hands, to see the tools we hold, and to wonder, are we building a cage or a sanctuary? As the night deepens and the world grows still, let this question settle into the quiet spaces of your mind. There is no need for an answer, not yet. Simply hold it, like a stone smoothed by a river, and let it remind you of the weight and wonder of being human. What future are we building in this very moment? Let that thought drift with you, like a lantern in the dark, illuminating not just the path ahead, but the choices that light its way.